Hello and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast. It's episode 2 time. We're all back and we're available on Apple Podcasts as well. Now, they approved us earlier in the week, so we're now available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts. It's been a difficult week to be a Baggies fan with an excellent win against Derby in midweek, but then we went on to draw against the result we wanted and ramps up the pressure in the race for automatic promotion. We'll also look ahead to the huge Fulham, which is coming up on Tuesday night, which is tomorrow for you guys, tomorrow for me as well. Today's Monday against Fulham. It's going to be an absolute corker, a must-win actually for both sides, because Fulham are also in the chase for automatic promotion just behind Brentford. So it'll be interesting to see how we get on in this. So without further ado, if you are new to the podcast, you're a first-time listener, or you're a returning visitor, make sure you click the follow button on Spotify, the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts, and also the subscribe button on YouTube, and make sure you like the video if you enjoy on YouTube. So without further ado, let's get straight into this episode of the Baggies Podcast. The Baggies Podcast on YouTube, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Join me every week for a new episode of the Baggies Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. So what a week, for West Bromwich Albion, one that has really tested the nerve and patience of West Bromwich Albion fans. Friday night was an absolute disgrace and a disappointment, and brought a lot of air out of a lot of Albion fans, and it was not a night to behold for Albion fans at all. But nonetheless, we've been given that lifeline by Stoke City, and we'll talk more about that game later, the one that Stoke City won. But firstly, got to cast our minds back to go and look at the game, which was on the 14th of July between West Bromwich Albion and Fulham. So it was a big game, a huge game for both teams, because Fulham could really sort of push themselves into that top 2 mix as well, which they have by winning the game the other day. I think it was against Sheffield Wednesday. But we put up a good fight against Huddersfield in that second half, I feel. In the second half, our second half performance was probably good enough to win the game. However, the first half was not anything to behold. Fulham dominated the ball, essentially, with 55% of possession, with the Baggies having 45 of that. 12 total shots for the Albion, 8 chances created and 1 big chance. I feel like we had some big chances in that game, and big chances did come, in fact, and it felt like a missed couple of points. I mean, the honours ended up even, but we did have a real good go in that second half, and that was much better. Knockout hit the bar for Fulham. That was a spectacular effort, which had it gone in, that would have been, meant curtains for Albion, because I couldn't see us scoring. Carnu had a blocked effort by Reed. I think that was one of our biggest chances in the game. He was absolutely fantastic. He was absolutely fantastic blocking that. Harrison Reed, I have to say, if there's a player I have to pick out in the Fulham side, it's not going to be Anthony Knockaert, who had a good game himself. It's going to have to be Harrison Reed. His tracking back, he was excellent. I mean, he did commit some fouls here and there, but I can deal with that because he's just trying to do a job for his team. But he did some absolute great tracking runs of Pereira. Pereira had a chance, a half sort of chance. He had a swing at it, and where was Harrison Reed? But right behind him, tracking him. Same with Hal Robson-Carnu's chance. Harrison Reed, for me, had a really good game and deserves a lot of high praise from his manager, Scott Parker. And I'd be, really pleased with that performance from Harrison Reed, because he did show what he was made of in that game. A lot of steel, a lot of effort, a lot of willing to win as well, because he just wanted to track back. He wanted to make his team win. And his effort was to behold. So I have to say well done to Harrison Reed. But however, that did take a turn to the worse the next game, where he got sent off against Sheffield Wednesday. But however, that game for Harrison Reed for Fulham was a good one for me. I feel like we didn't get out the blocks in that game enough in my opinion. I feel like we started the game a bit too slowly. You have to question some of the performances in that first half. Johnson, I have to criticise him again, and I'm going to have to criticise him later on in this episode. He did have a reasonable game. It certainly wasn't as bad as the one against Huddersfield. Again, it's just a lot of pressure he puts on his defenders. I think he's a fantastic shot stopper, but unfortunately in this modern game it's becoming not enough to just be that shot stopper. Although that would have probably done, it would probably do your job a few years ago. You have to be a good distributor of the ball, which I don't think he is quite. These are all things that can be improved on. Like it's not like he's a lost cause because he can't He's struggling to distribute the ball or dominate his penalty area. There are things that can be coached. There are things that can be talked about, and there are things that can be addressed from the goalkeeping coach. I don't know what they're seeing, the goalkeeping coaches at the Albion, to understand that Sam Johnston is struggling to cope with aerial balls into the box. Not even sometimes aerial, just corners, free kicks. He's just struggling to cope with those. I don't know what they're seeing to make them think that he's fine with those, because at the moment he just isn't. He just isn't fine with those. I think it's just something that needs to be addressed, because he puts the defence under a lot of pressure. It really does need to be addressed, because it could be the difference between us going up and not going up, which it nearly was the other day. The first half was pretty bad from both teams. Nobody managed to get on the ball. Nobody really managed to start to press the opposition. Fulham had a couple of chances from corners, which I've mentioned with Johnston earlier, but they kept heading the ball at us and nearly scoring from it. So yeah, I suppose they had some decent chances in that respect. But in the first half, Fulham were too easily allowed to come onto us and allowed to create a bit of pressure. Whereas in the second half, we did do the exact same to them. So it was a sort of tale of two halves, really, with us having a lot of that ball in the second half, with them having a lot of the ball in the first half. Obviously, they had more of it overall. But I feel like that it was sort of a tale of two halves in that respect. And one that we could have won. I have to say, it's one that we could have won. I don't like saying that, but it was one that we could have ended up winning. The 4 substitutes that were made: Matt Phillips came on for Kamil Grosicki. I'll talk more about Matt Phillips when we get to the Huddersfield game. Then Harrelson kind of came on for Charlie Austin, Robinson for Dean Garnett, then Krovinovic for Pereira, but that was far too late to do anything. I feel like we had chances and they had chances. It was a really even game, and one that probably deserved to have some goals in it. I'll probably say it deserved to be a draw just simply because of the way it ended up. So we're doing really good. We weren't doing too great in that game, and hopefully we'll do something in the game against QPR. But we'll go on to talk about that game against Huddersfield. And warning, this is not an easy listen. So this game against Huddersfield, we're gonna have to talk about it, aren't we? It's not going to be an easy listen. It's essentially going to be me talking about the flaws in this side during this game for the next 10 minutes or so. I feel like we didn't have enough passion in that game. We struggled greatly. The effort seemed like it was non-existent in this game, and that annoys me, because that was such a huge game. It looked like we were going to have to win. At that point, it was two games that we had to win. 2 games that we had to win to make sure that we go up straight away. No arguments, no Brentford involved, just 2 wins in Europe. It doesn't matter what Brentford do, just get 2 wins and you're gone. I just feel like the effort just wasn't there. So we'll talk through the starting lineup. Let's go through the starting lineup. Sam Johnston in goal gave away the first goal of the game, essentially, by failing to gather. It was a reasonable ball by Juninho Bacuna, but it was straight at Johnston, right down his throat. All he had to do was bend down, pick it up. There we go. Off we pop. Carry on. Yeah, got a bit of a let off that they haven't put in a really promising ball. Instead of gathering it like a normal goalkeeper would, he decides to sort of bend a leg towards it, bend a leg inside. I'm doing the action with my legs now. You can't see obviously, but bend a leg inside and try and parry it away with his legs, like a block save, like you'd do if you were in a one-on-one situation. So he did that and pushes it straight into the path of Chris Willock, former Albion loanee. He played for us earlier this season, didn't play a game for us, couldn't even get in the side, and now he was the most effective player in that first half, simply with the goal, and he was running rings around the defence. Let's take a look at his performance, because he absolutely ran rings around us in that game. So dribbles attempted 4, dribbles succeeded 4. That probably tells you enough about what you need to know about his performance, because he was just running rings around us. I don't understand, and Johnston ought to hang his head in shame for that goal. The free kick, however, I'm going to go back a step here, and the free kick shouldn't have been conceded by Dara O'Shea. It was a cheap free kick, didn't need to get involved. Juninho Bakuna was going nowhere effectively, he was going away from goal, so why would you try and stick your foot in? I know, I love Dara, I love him, I think he's a fantastic player and he's going to be a really huge player for us in the future. But what possesses you to go and stick your foot in like that when it's just needless? Yeah, I just didn't understand it, but I do have a lot of respect for Dara. He did score the goal, which was probably should have been ruled out by offside. Not in this league, we don't do VAR. But thankfully we don't do VAR, or else we'd probably been in a lot of trouble and we'd probably find ourselves in a bit of a pickle. But thankfully Dara got away with it and made up for his error and lack of judgment. So there's Dara, there's Sam. Going to the centre-back pairing. Ahmed Higazi, I can't fault the effort from him. I can't fault it, I'm afraid. I just can't fault his effort, because he was really giving 110% in the games, and he looked, against Fulham he was my man of the match. It was absolutely incredible. Blocking, defending, heading, everything he was doing had everybody's best interests at heart at West Bromwich Albion Football Club. You could see he wanted it. Semi Ajayi, got a lot of respect for him as well. I just felt he sort of crumbled under the pressure a couple of times. I feel he's a fantastic player. He's signing of the season for me, apart from Pereira obviously, but Semi Ajayi, bargain of the season definitely. Townsend, go to left back. For me, his effort is there. Just sometimes he gets himself caught in a few difficult positions for himself. He makes things a lot difficult by, for example, being on the wrong side of his man and then having to chase back, and then he gives away a foul, and then it becomes difficult for your team. And when you've got Sam Johnson who isn't willing to come for crosses and things like that, he struggles with that. Connor Townsend, yeah, I feel his effort is there, and I love his effort. I love his tenacity. Just sometimes he doesn't think, but I feel I'd take him to the Premier League just simply because of his tenacity. I think he's been quite underrated this season, and I feel he's done a really good job for Gibbs in the times that he's been injured. So let's move on. Let's move quite forward into the midfield. We'll go for Jake Livermore. His passion is there. For me, he looks like he's trying. Came off at half time, I think it was, and I think that's more because Slaven knew that we'd have the ball a bit more. But so he brought on, I think it was Phil Kravinovic. He brought him on. So that was a fair sub. If you think you're going to have the ball more, why have a defensive player on the pitch? But when I'll go to the next centre midfield. When Romain Sawyers is playing a game like that, he was. I don't know what happened to Romain. He seemed to completely ignore the circumstances of the game. So the circumstances of the game was, we need to get the ball forward. We need to go. Come on, we've got limited time here to get these goals, because at the moment, until the very last couple of minutes, it was in fact 1-1. So everybody was thinking, wow, it's 1-0. We need to get that. It's 1-1. We need to get that goal. We need to get that ball. We need to be quick with our possession and get forward. Romain, I don't know what he was doing. He thought he had all the time in the world. I don't know what it was. Whether he was trying to be too casual with it, whether he was trying to be too clever with it. He just needed to get the ball out of his feet and go, and just get the ball forward, drive a bit maybe, and just pass the ball off. That was all your job required, Romain. You just needed to be that pivot, take the ball off the back foot, and get it out, because that game was so important. That game is so important. Still so important. Could still affect our season drastically. And we just needed him to be a bit more forward thinking. That's all. I rate Romain Sawyers. I think he's one of the best midfielders in the Championship. Certainly the best passer of the ball probably in our team. Very composed, but there he just looked too composed. I don't know what it was. Maybe he was crumbling under the pressure. Maybe he was a bit nervous. That's understandable. It's a huge game, but as a professional footballer, you have to be able to pull your socks up and go, we need to win this, and we need to get going. But yeah, finest game. We'll move to Matt Phillips on the right wing. I've seen a lot of things on Twitter. I'm going to go on Twitter right away actually and just Google Matt Phillips, not Google Matt Phillips, but search Matt Phillips, because I feel like that could be one of his last games in our club, and that's upsetting, because I feel he's a really good player, and has some good games for the club. Unfortunately, he just doesn't do it really. It's not the He hasn't been putting in the effort, is what I'm trying to say. Bilic hasn't, shown so much faith in him. I'm actually reading somebody else's tweet here, but he has shown so much faith in him, picking him consistently. And Phillips doesn't perform very often. I feel on his day, Matt Phillips is one of the best players, best wingers in this Championship, possibly even Premier League. Unfortunately, his day comes about 4 or 5 times in this Championship season, and when you consider the season's 46 games long, 5 or 6 of those games, having a good game is not the way to go. I feel sometimes he's shying away from the ball. It's like he doesn't want it. It's like, oh, no, don't look at me, don't pass to me. It's just really that. He is a fantastic player. He's got pace, he's got a perfect build for a footballer. Muscular, strong when he wants to be. Just in this Huddersfield game, he just couldn't get it together. He seems to back away from things quite a lot. At the start of the season, he was in really good form, top scorer for quite a lot of the start of the season. It just bothers me how that could be his last game in an Albion shirt. I can't see Bilic picking him. It's just silly. I feel like he's wasting that ability. Something I asked on Twitter just a few minutes ago, actually. I've only had one response to it. I probably should have asked it earlier, but Tyrell B152 has commented, I've asked for opinions on Matt Phillips. What do you think of him? Tyrell thinks that he was good at the start of the season and slowly fell off at the end of this season, looks unfit and lack of energy, needs to get sold. I'm going to have to say, I agree with that. I feel like he has to go. I think he's ran his race at the Albion. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's got that ability. You've seen the ability. Everybody's seen the ability. Unfortunately, it just hasn't come often enough in this division. Towards the end of the Premier League, he looked really good. Unfortunately, this season, he just hasn't delivered consistently enough, and that's why Matt Phillips has to go for me. Carrying on, of course, through the lineup, Pereira, for me, trying his hardest. He can't do everything. He's a great player, Pereira. He can't do everything. It wasn't his finest game, given that. He didn't come up with much end product. But he's trying, and there's just a lack of movement ahead of him. Phillips wasn't moving. Diangana was being marked out the game by 2/3 players because they know what he's capable of. So if Grady's being marked, surely there's space for strikers to move up front. And Robson Kanu is static as anything. I admire Kanu for getting how many goals he has this season. 10 goals. That's an incredible amount for somebody who came in on essentially a free transfer. But look at his goal record. 19 goals and 135 appearances. If we do go up to the Premier League, or even if we stay in the Championship, a striker has to be at the top of our shopping list. Can't be anything else. Striker has to be at the top. We'll move forward to the bench. Robinson came on, had the chance to win the game and fluffed it. Not much to say about him. Grosicki wasn't great when he came on. Not the same type of guy we've seen from him. Charlie Austin, you can see how much it means to him. You look on the pictures. I think it was the Birmingham something. That newspaper, and you could see how hard he was trying. How he looked like he was crying. It's just not the game for him. He didn't look okay really for me. We've also had another opinion on Matt Phillips. This is from All Things Albion 2. Who says, done okay for over the years, wasn't seen as one of the issues in the Prem, wouldn't be making my squad at the moment. I'd have Sahor on the bench instead, but it's sad to see how quickly fans forget. He does his best and doesn't deserve the abuse. It's Slav that picks him. I'd agree with that as well. He's not at his best at the moment. I feel like the fans have turned on him quite a lot. Zahor, for me, has to be on the bench. I can't. I spoke about him last week, and I know it's not conventional because he hasn't played very many games. But look at his goal scoring record. In the EFL Championship this season, he's made 5 starts and has 3 goals and 17 sub appearances. He hasn't been given the chance to excel, and I'd have him on the bench instead of Phillips. So I agree with All Things Albion too. The fans have forgotten how good Matt Phillips was in the Premier League. Just at the moment, he's not at his best, and I feel it's time to it is time to sort of move on, I think, for Phillips. I think the fans have really turned against him, and I think it's not going to do him any good to stay. It's one of those things, it's a sad ending because he was really good in the Premier League, but it's just a shame to see him go like this. Zohore for me has to be on the bench, so I'm going to have to agree with all things Albion too. Zohore should be on the bench instead. Give him a chance. Give him a go. Last time he played, he hit the bar against Brentford. It came the closest out of any of our players to scoring against Brentford. But suddenly, after that, you haven't seen him in the side since. And when things are going wrong, you have to start changing things up. You have to start, changing things, and you have to start moving on and changing things around. If things aren't working, you have to fix it. At the moment, things aren't working, so try something different. Just a different combination on the bench might be it. Where's Kyle Edwards? I haven't seen him for a while. Is he injured? I'm not sure. As far as I'm aware, he's not injured. No, I don't think he is at all. No, he's not injured. So where is he? He hasn't. He played 1 minute against Brentford. 1 minute. And that's his last time he's played. He's a tricky guy, and I think he should be given another chance. If things aren't working, you have to fix them. You have to give other things a go and try different combinations. And for me, that's one of the things they need to change is the bench, because things are getting a bit out of hand and things are changing. We're becoming under a lot of pressure. We will be under a lot of pressure on Wednesday night. So why not, Slaven? Just have a look at your bench and think, who's going to come on for me and put in a good performance? Who's going to come on and change the game for me? And for me, Matt Phillips is not that man at the moment. He's not. As much as I want to back him, as much as I want to, go on Matt Phillips, because he's been a great servant to the club, and he's done a good job over the past couple of years. But it has been time for him to give back to the fans for the past few games and give him something to cheer about, and he just hasn't looked like he wants to. So I'm afraid Matt Phillips has to go, and we need to have a look at a different combination on the bench. If you look at the bench, should we have a look at the bench for the game against Huddersfield and see who was on there? And let's see who could have changed the game. So Callum Robinson, he could come on and do something good. I can see why he's on there. Charlie Austin, should be on the bench for me. He cares, he really does. Krovinovic, we'll have him on the bench. Bond, you got to have a goalkeeper. Kamil Grosicki, got to be on the bench for me. Could even be starting. Darnell Furlong, good full-back option. Chris Brunt, he should be, for me, playing against QPR. He should be at least coming on for a half, maybe more. It's his last game, and we have to celebrate him for that. And he will put in 110% for the club he loves. Carl Bartley also on the bench. Raheem Harper. It hasn't been his season really in the Championship for me. He hasn't excelled as much as I'd like him to. I like Raheem. I think he's going to be a great talent in the future, but this season just hasn't been for him. So he just needs to try something different on the bench. So let's go through your answers in a second for the QPR game as to who you would start in this also important clash. So before we do that, I've just learned that Albion will be missing Kieran Gibbs for the game against QPR. Apart from that, full strength. So let's have a look at what you guys thought about who should be starting in the game against QPR. So let's go down to my tweet and see what you all thought. Okay, who would start on Wednesday? Comment below, and I'll use the answers in tomorrow's podcast. So let's start with Paul Garbett 1960, who has commented: Johnston, Furlong, Ajayi, Hegazi, O'Shea, Livermore, Brunt, Dean Garnett, Pereira, Krovinovic, Austin. Do not allow Phillips or Harper anywhere near the squad. Okay, so I'd probably change Furlong out, because he's... Actually, it depends which side you put him on, because if Furlong's on the left-hand side, he won't do very well, because he's a very right-footed player. But O'Shea could do a job. For me, O'Shea could do a job at left-back, but for me, Brunt should be in the side. I would maybe keep Pereira in the middle and turn Krovinovic out for Grosicki. Just give him a go. So we'll go down to Albion News Gaming, who has sent this lineup in. So Johnston, O'Shea, Ajayi, Hegazi, Townsend, Livermore, Brunt, Pereira, Krovinovic, Grosicki, Austin. I'd probably that's probably one that I'd agree with. Sawyers looks tired for me. Looks like he's run out a bit of steam, lost a bit of his flair, lost a bit of that uniqueness, which has made him one of the better midfielders in the Championship. So for me, Sawyers has to has to go really. I can't see. So we'll talk about QPR now. So thank you firstly for those two, for Paul Garber and Albion News Gaming, for sending in those fantastic lineups. And keep being involved with the podcast. It's nice to have your input as well. So let's talk about QPR. Why on earth would they want to win? I have no idea why they want to win at all. It's funny. It's funny to see. QPR can't get any higher in the table. Hate Brentford and Fulham. Get 125k if we go up. So that's in add-ons for Darnell Furlong's transfer, and the current manager was sacked by Brentford. Come on, QPR. Come on. I feel like it's hard for me to let it happen. QPR, just do it. Go on, just let us. Can't rely on any of the club really. We've let ourselves down in those past couple of days, but unfortunately we have to go out there with all guns blazing. We can't allow it to be in QPR's hands, like to whether they play well. We have to be good enough, and we have to go out there and give it our all. But it's going to be a difficult clash, and one that has to be won. So hopefully, if you've enjoyed the podcast, you'll go and smash a like on it. If you're on YouTube, subscribe if you're on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, or if you're on Spotify, you'll follow. And come on, you Baggies. It's a big game on Wednesday night, and we're all right behind you. And also, a final thank you to Chris Brunt. Thank you for your years of amazing service for the Albion. It's been fantastic having you, and hopefully it works out okay. Hopefully Chris Brunt will come on and score that penalty or whatever that ends up winning the league, not winning the league, but winning that promotion. 12 years, 417 appearances and 48 goals. Thank you, Chris Brunt, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Baggies Podcast. Come on, you Baggies. Goodbye.